Good morning and welcome to this weekly market update from MRC Markets. Today's the 13th of March 2013. What I'm going to do today is go through some technical analysis on Euro dollar, cable, dollar Swiss, dollar yen and gold. Won't be making any trade calls or recommendations in this video. You trade at your own risk. If you could please read our full disclaimer on our website www.mrcmarkets.com. For anyone who follows, we have 3 moving averages on each of these charts. The red one here is a 55 simple moving average, the blue is a 100 simple, and the gold is a 200 simple moving average. Yeah, so basically just going to go through some technical analysis, just go through what setups I'm looking at on my charts, and hopefully it will be of some use to you. Okay then, let's have a look at the euro dollar. This is the weekly chart. And we won't dwell too much on this weekly. We'll try and look at the shorter term time frames like the daily, 4 hour and 1 hour. But yeah, it's good just to give some sort of perspective really. It's always good to have a refresh of the weekly chart, and more importantly, just look at the previous week's candle. If you're intraday trading, trading day in, day out, it's good just to look at the weekly to help you give some sort of bias into the market and where we could be heading this week. I mean, as you could see, the last sort of 5 candles have all been bearish candles, and each one of these candles has followed on from one another, so they're always very useful to look at. So yeah, last week's candle, basically a bearish continuation pattern, not quite a reverse hammer because it has got a bit of lower wick. So what we would have expected in this week's candle is to start the week maybe popping up a bit, which we've already got, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it come back down for the rest of the week and maybe even test this 55-week moving average here, which stands at the 1.2908 level. Also, one thing I'd look at is this fib. So I just need to change the colours of all these fibs. Bear me 2 seconds. See if we go into the Fibo levels. I'm just going to change it to a brown here, so it should be easier to pick up on. We'll delete the 23.6 and 38.2 as well. We'll just look at the 50 and the 61.8 for some sort of decent retracement zones on these videos. We'll draw the levels in as well. Right, yeah, so as you can see, ideally we're looking for, I mean, it looks like Euro wants to come down and maybe test this 55-week moving average or this 50% retrace. This 50% level stands at the 1.2875 level. Below that we've got the 61.8. So you can just, for these sort of videos, we just look at the 50% and the 61.8 as a sort of retracement zone, so anywhere in between this sort of zone really. I mean, a lot of traders trade off of the 50%, and then you can perhaps put your stops behind the 61.8. It gives you a kind of stop. That's quite a popular method, so that's what we'll look at on these videos. Yeah, so this is the fib that I'm concentrating on this weekly chart, which a lot of traders will be looking at. And yeah, I mean, you can see that the euro dollar we got above this 100-week moving average. We closed below it, and then you can see it started to cap. So now, in terms of weekly charts, the focus is purely on this: what happens if we get down towards this 55-week moving average and this 50% retrace. If we zoom it into the daily chart, you can see this this fib set up a little bit clearer. Of course, we've had the trend line break. I'll just change the colour of that as well, so it's a bit clearer. So we'll thicken it up and make it purple. Yeah, this trend line, we had a clear break of this trend. I think we spoke about this last week's video. We're now below the 100-day moving average, and it looks like it may want to come down and test the 200-day moving average. It's been very choppy really the last sort of few days trading, but we can see that a little bit clearer actually. If we zoom to the 4-hour chart, you can see it's just been really chopping in, basically just forming a sort of another flag or a kind of retrace. You can see we've been in this clear downtrend here, and every time it's we bounced off this trend line, it's come back down, kind of flagged a bit and bounced off it again, and that's kind of what's happening here. This recent sort of flag, it's a classic bear flag really, and it's topped out at the trend line resistance, and now you can see we've started to come down on this current 4-hour candle. So yeah, I mean, we're basically just, I mean, if you look at the 4-hour chart, it's just a clear downtrend really, and the best thing to do in my opinion is just play that downtrend. A lot of people would just be selling any sort of bounce off this trendline resistance. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how I've got my chart set up. So we've gone through the weekly, daily and 4-hour. I mean, in terms of the hourly chart, it's very, very choppy. I personally would stay away. I know a popular fib at the minute will be from this recent swing low to the swing high. Then you can see we're bouncing off the 61.8% retracement, but personally I prefer to look at fibs going with the trend. So I mean, on the 4-hour it's a downtrend, so I personally wouldn't want to take any long setups. You're pretty much trying to pick a bottom there, and that's a dangerous thing to do in my opinion. So yeah, let's move on to a cable now. Cable on the weekly, we've spoken about this fib setup many times in these videos. You can now see the 50% got absolutely smashed through, and that was a previous really strong support level. But in all fairness, it had been tested quite a few times. It had bounced there, bounced there, bounced there, and a bounce around here. So I mean, already 4 bounces. And alike with triple bottoms or tops, they tend to get broken. And if you imagine it as a sort of floor or a ceiling, in this case a floor, if you stamp on it 4 times, it's more chance to break each time it gets tested, and that's what's happened here. But you can now see that we're testing the 61.8. If I zoom in there, we're testing the 61.8% retrace. You can now see this current weekly candle is starting to form a decent reversal pattern here, so keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on this weekly candle close. So that's a reversal. Wouldn't be surprised to see it bounce up and then test this 50% level, which was previous support. It could act as previous resistance. So those two levels, the 61.8 stands at one spot 48.53, and the 50% retrace stands at one spot 52.71. So that's the main sort of setup I'm looking at personally on cable. On the weekly, I mean, in terms of the daily, it's a similar thing, really, the same sort of fib setup. I mean, you can see a clear candlestick reversal pattern on yesterday's daily chart. A clear sort of, I think that's called that's classified as gravestone doji candle. Not quite a hammer because the body isn't that big. A lot of people also call it a dragonfly doji. Basically, got a long lower wick and a small body with a tiny bit of upper body. But you got to remember, there's a lot of buyers coming in there. The prices brought it all the way down. The buyers have pushed it all the way up to make the candlestick look that way. And you can already see on today's candle we're starting to come up a bit. So it's a classic sort of reversal pattern off of a big support level there, and you see prices kind of. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a short-term bounce, because the UK is very weak in terms of fundamentally at the minute. There's some really negative data out recently, and the pound is just getting absolutely slammed at the minute. So wouldn't be surprised if it did bounce up to this 50% and then just got sold off again. But and yeah, and the other thing, if we do get a much bigger bounce, then the 50% on that fib from the highs to the lows comes in at one spot 55.99. So let's say one spot 56. So keep an eye on that. But we're a long way away from that. Yeah, so in terms of the 4, if we look at any shorter term patterns, just shorter term sell opportunities, then you've got the trend line resistance there, which is kind of holding, but it's starting to break above it at the minute. But in terms of cable, the only thing I'm really interested in this is this 61.8% level. It's a long setup. It's currently in play for a lot of traders here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it rotate higher. But the bigger picture is definitely the important one, in my opinion. On this cable chart, that big 61.8% level, see how it reacts. But it has been selling off very aggressively, and it looks like it has been due some sort of retrace. So as I say, I wouldn't be surprised to see it retrace up and test some of these key daily moving averages here. Let's have a look at the dollar Swiss chart. In terms of this, the weekly chart, we've been spoken about the last many weeks how it was chopping in between this 55-day moving average and the 55-week moving average and the 100-week moving average, and we finally got a clear candlestick break and close above the 55-week moving average. So it means the odds, in my opinion, would be towards this 200-week moving average, which stands at 0.97 0.04, but of course we're still a long way away from that. But in terms of the weekly, that's all we're massively focused on, really. The other thing I would look at is from that fib from the highs to the lows there. But you can see we've already had a weekly candlestick close above the 50%, so nothing massively of interest on this weekly chart. Let's look at the shorter time frames. I mean, you can see we're just in a clear sort of uptrend here on this daily. We closed above all the moving averages. If you look at the 4-hour chart, then it's just a pure sort of channel, really, uptrend channel. We'll draw an equidistant channel here, so you can see. I'll just change the colour actually as well. Yeah, so you can see clear uptrend here on this 4-hour chart, a nice equidistant channel. And yeah, in terms of this dollar Swiss chart, is really what I've got the focus on at the minute. It's just playing inside this channel, so a lot of buying opportunities if it does come down towards the bottom of the channel, and if it comes to the top, then it's a decent selling opportunity. You can see the recent one there. A nice reversal candlestick pattern on the 4-hour chart. We've got a decent sell off there down towards this 55 bar moving average on this 4-hour chart. So yeah, interesting play there. I mean, you can see it a little bit clearer as well on the daily, but in terms of this dollar Swiss chart, that's how it's really got it set up, to be honest with you. Nothing else massively of interest on that dollar Swiss chart. Let's have a look at the dollar yen. The weekly, very bullish. Still very bullish. The amount I'm speaking about the last few weeks in these videos, looked at the same chart and it's just absolutely flying. So I mean, in terms of a big selling opportunity, in my opinion, I mean the key resistance level really, if you draw a fib on this monthly chart from the highs to the lows, the 50% retrace comes in at 99.84. So of course we're a long way away from that. But the 100-month moving average comes at 98.40. But I mean, in terms of big upside resistance levels, I mean, if you look at the weekly, you can see it much clearer here. It just looks like it just wants to come up and test that level. So the uptrend is still well and truly in play. A lot of people are just looking for short-term dip opportunity. If you look on the 4-hour chart, the one thing I'd be focused on, let's say if we've kind of had a mini top out here, is look for a retrace at the 50% retrace level, which is at 93.80. But of course it could come down and test this 55 bar moving average on this 4-hour and easily continue upwards. But in terms of a solid level, that would be a decent one that I'd look at. But that's what I'm focused on personally on this dollar yen chart. That's done for the forex. Let's have a look at gold. Interesting chart, gold. We've been speaking, if you flip it to this weekly, it's been all about the sort of 1560s or 1565. Well, yeah, we'll leave it around there. So if you zoom in here, that was the previous that weekly candlestick closed there. It hasn't closed below this sort of these 1560s level for a long time. And you can see the last couple of weeks we've tested this level and it's closed above. You can see it's clear if you look at the daily chart. Some clear candlesticks have tested this 15. Let's call it 1564. So 1564, you can see we've had multiple tests here. We failed to have a daily candlestick close below this level, and you can see we're starting to rotate towards the upside. So I would not be surprised to see this test this 1536, which is a 55-day moving average, and then if we get above them, and then we also have the 100-day and the 200-day above that as well. But yeah, I mean, as I said, we've had a decent retracement on this gold chart. I mean, you've got the trendline resistance up here, so I wouldn't be surprised personally to see it come up and test that trendline resistance. It looks bullish in my opinion. I personally think that we should come up and test this trendline resistance here, and also see that 55-day moving average have a key test that first. But that would be the first target. I wouldn't be surprised in the next week video if we look at this chart again, it's when we've already had a test of that 55-day moving average. Okay then, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found that technical analysis useful. Have a great rest of the week trading, and I'll catch you next week. Thanks for listening.